and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune, where we're having a special leadership series. And I am super excited to introduce you to Ming, who will. Hi, Ming. How are
Lynn.
you?
Good. How are
Nice to.
you?
Good. I'm excited to hear about your product or service, and I'm giving you the floor. So here you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ming Shelby, and I'm currently Director of Professional Learning in the suburbs of Chicago. But I also love to speak to students and staff around the United States, Australia, Asia, Europe. Those are the couple places that I've been speaking on courage in the classroom and how when we build courage in our students, that's when true student transformation begins. And when I get to connect with people in the audience, with teachers, with administrators, and just talk about how we can build capacity for students to be courageous with their voice, the impact that it has is just amazing to me. And that's what kind of keeps me going. So thank you so much for having me on today, Lynn.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. So I have a couple questions for you. So what got you interested in you're a motivational speaker, correct?
Yes.
And so how long have you been doing this, and what inspired you to be a motivational speaker, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, Lynn, since we talked about it, and I've been doing it for over a decade, which is crazy to me because it doesn't feel like it's been that long at all. And for me, what was happening when I was an instructional coach and I would go around and visit different classrooms, I noticed that the kids were so quiet and that the teacher was talking all of the time, and that it was really rare for student voice to be a part of it. And I just thought, what if we gave more opportunities for our students to speak? What if we gave more choices to them? What what could happen? And our kids are our future, right? And if we give them now this chance in the classroom to make more choices, to have more voice, the impact could be phenomenal. And I remember, Lynn, when I was in first grade and we did a craft and we did this penguin activity. And I was so excited. I followed along with my teacher on cutting out the beak, the eyes, doing all that stuff. And then I was getting ready to show my friend who was sitting next to me. And I looked over, and my friend had the same exact penguin that I had. And then I looked over at the kid to the other side of me, and he had the same exact product too. And we know that we're not cookie cutters of each other, right? Each of us is so unique and individual, and we have our own special strengths. And I just think, how powerful would our world be if our students could speak up, use their voice, and maybe then they'll become adults who are able to do that as well.
Wonderful. So with that said, you started talking around the world motivational speaking. Now, were you speaking to the children, or were you speaking to the teachers, or what was your motivational point of getting your message across?
It was actually to both. So it started with students, and working with students and saying, "Hey, how do you use your voice in class? What does that sound like? What does that feel like?" And they're like, "It's so scary. The teacher is in charge. I never want to do it." And think about at home too, for all the parents who are listening, a lot of the decision it's the parents making, right? And not as much as your child. But when students get to use their voice and when they have opportunities, the smiles, the proudness that they feel, it is amazing. And then that started to transfer over to working with teachers too, of how can we build more agency within our students and what would that look like? And just giving our students those types of opportunities. And Lynn, the transformation is amazing. Like, you see teachers open up their classroom who give so much choice. So, for example, there would be an activity one day, and they would ask the students, "Do you want to do choice A or choice B?" And the kids who wanted to do choice A could do choice A, and the ones who could do choice B could do choice B. And the one stipulation I tell the teachers is, make sure that the choices you're giving, you're okay with both of the choices. Because you would hate to say, "Okay, you can do this or that." And like, "Oh, just kidding. Like, take that back. I don't want you to do that one." So just make sure that whatever choices that you give to your students, that you're okay with it. And then I always tell the teachers, ask your students feedback. And I tell parents this too. Ask for feedback because we're serving them. So ask them, what did you like about this? What did you not like about this? What else would you want to do? And it's really important that we take time to ask them for their feedback, but it's something that we rarely do because we're just kind of constantly moving through our day. So those are some
That's
quick tips there.
that's awesome. So let's talk about the fact that you actually have a podcast. So what inspired the podcast and this motivational speaking? Let's know a little bit more what your passion is on all this.
Thanks so much for this question, Lynn. So
You're
in
welcome.
2018, my word of the year, I chose courage because I was just feeling that in my job, there was not alignment between what I value and the organization's value. And so I really wanted to be courageous and living true to who I was and what I wanted to put out into the world. And what really supported me in that was hearing other people's stories of courage. One of my really good friends was going through a divorce, and hearing her story of how she had to be resilient and flexible through that, I was like, okay, I can do this too. I can be courageous. And just hearing lots of other people's stories. So that was how the podcast Courage Up was born. And this podcast, where I interview people, where they share when was that moment that they chose to courage up and move from comfort and into the unknown so they could learn and flourish and thrive. And it's so unique hearing everybody's stories, but there's this through line of even when I'm scared, I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that hearing people's personal stories of perseverance is so powerful that it motivates you to kind of just get up and say, I can do it too, and just achieve any of our dreams.
So did you yourself get the courage to actually do a podcast? Is that would you say that's correct, or you
Yes,
didn't have a problem
Lynn,
with that?
definitely. Oh my gosh. Yes, because putting yourself out there, putting your voice out there, as you know, I was opening myself to a lot of critique. And my previous place of employment, I was like, what if they listen to it? And what if they don't like it? Right. And all that kind of imposter syndrome goes on
Mhm.
through your mind. But I was like, this is really important to me. And if I just influence one person to be courageous in their daily life, then this podcast is totally worth it. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
so where can people listen to you? Why don't you plug in the name of your podcast and where you have it, where people can grab it?
So you can find the Courage Up podcast on any places where you stream your podcast. So on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Stitcher, on Google. And if you're like, oh, what was that again? Just head to Ming Shelby, MingShelby.com, and you can find all the information related to the podcast and the topics that I speak about, and contact me to speak at any of your events related to courage.
All right. And so how long have you been doing that?
Lynn, I started it in quarantine and during COVID. So it launched of May of last year. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have hit 50 episodes. And there's been over 10,000 downloads. It's amazing the support. That's the other thing, is that when we put ourselves out there, I was so impressed and amazed with the people who showed up for me, and just the amount of texts and messages that I got that was saying thank you. These stories have really helped me. I was like, okay, this is totally worth it. So when we put ourselves out there, we get rewarded for taking that big risk. So if anyone is thinking, should I or should I not, whether pursuing your next big idea, I always say, go for it.
I love that. So it's called Courage, correct?
It's called
Oops.
Courage Up.
Courage Up. And Ming, I added your name there so they could see Ming Shelby. I added your name right
Oh,
there so
wonderful.
they can see
Thank
that.
you.
And so is there any backstory before we get going, as far as what inspired you, motivates you, or anything else you'd like to share as a last plug?
Yeah, the last thing is that for me, I was feeling really complacent in what I was doing. I was really comfortable. I was happy, and everything day to day was great. And I worked in a great organization, but there was something that was just kind of pulling at my heartstrings and tugging and saying, there's more for what for you out there. And so for anyone out there who's kind of thinking that, is just listen to your heart, follow those instincts of what's pulling at you, because you never know what's next for you. You could be on the LA Tribune interview with Lynn. You just don't know what's happening. So take a risk, step outside of your comfort zone. And if you're interested in connecting more related to courage in your life or building courage in the classroom, please reach out to me. I would be so happy to continue the conversation with you.
This has been fantastic. It's no wonder Mo named this the Leadership Series, because you're leading the way for so many people to find their own voice and to find their own way to realize they're not alone, and that we can each impact each other. So I am very thankful that I've got another podcaster, and that you're making a difference in this world. So look for Ming Shelby at Courage Up, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn. It's been an honor to be a part of this series.
Oh, my pleasure. Be right back. Thank you, everybody.